A black chef named Andre was fired from a prestigious five-star restaurant by its racist white owner, Benjamin. 2 years later, Andre becomes a culinary sensation after winning a national cooking competition. Now it's Benjamin who begs for Andre to come back, but Andre turns him down. What happens when the one who was rejected now holds all the power? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Andre Henderson stood at his station in the bustling kitchen of the Grand Savoy, his skilled hands expertly chopping vegetables. The air was thick with the aroma of sizzling meats and fragrant spices, but Andre's face showed little joy. His dark eyes, usually alight with passion, were downcast as he focused on his mundane task. "Henderson, we need more carrots for the mirepoix," barked Chef Rousseau, the head chef, without even a glance in Andre's direction. "Yes, chef," Andre replied softly, his voice barely audible above the kitchen's din. As he reached for another bunch of carrots, Andre's mind wandered to the intricate recipes he'd created at home, inspired by his grandmother's soulful cooking. He longed to showcase his talents, to bring a taste of his heritage to the Grand Savoy's menu. But here, in this gleaming five-star kitchen, he felt invisible. Andre's gaze drifted to the center of the kitchen, where the sous chef was plating a beautifully arranged dish. He felt a pang in his heart, knowing he could create something just as exquisite if given the chance. But day after day, he found himself stuck with prep work, his skills and creativity untapped. As he methodically diced the carrots, Andre thought back to his grandmother's words, "Baby, your food is your voice. Don't ever let anyone silence it." He felt a lump form in his throat, wondering if he was letting her down by not speaking up. Just then, a commotion near the dessert station caught everyone's attention. The pastry chef was in a panic, realizing she had run out of a key ingredient for the night's special dessert. Andre's heart raced as he remembered the unique twist he'd developed on that very dish during his late-night experiments at home. For a moment, he considered stepping forward, offering his solution. But as quickly as the thought came, he pushed it away. The memory of past rejections and dismissive looks from his colleagues held him back. Andre returned to his carrots, his shoulders slumping slightly. He was a talented chef with so much to offer, yet here he was, feeling small and unimportant in the very place he'd dreamed of working. The weight of being undervalued pressed heavily on his heart, even as his hands continued their skilled work. The Grand Savoy's kitchen was abuzz with whispers and nervous energy. Word had spread quickly that the restaurant was under new ownership, and today was the day the mysterious new proprietor would make his first appearance. Andre wiped his brow with the back of his hand, trying to focus on the task before him, but even he couldn't help feeling a mix of curiosity and apprehension about what changes might be coming. Suddenly, the kitchen doors swung open with a dramatic flourish. A tall, impeccably dressed man strode in, his polished shoes clicking against the tile floor. The kitchen fell silent as all eyes turned to the newcomer. "Good morning," the man announced, his voice crisp and authoritative. "I'm Benjamin Reed, the new owner of the Grand Savoy." Andre watched as Benjamin's gaze swept across the kitchen, taking in every detail. The new owner's eyes seemed to linger disapprovingly on some of the staff, including Andre. "I want to make one thing clear," Benjamin continued, his tone leaving no room for argument. "The Grand Savoy is a beacon of culinary excellence and sophistication. We cater to the elite, and I expect nothing less than perfection from each and every one of you." Andre felt a knot form in his stomach. He'd heard rumors about Benjamin Reed's elitist views, but hearing them firsthand made him uneasy. Over the next few days, the changes Benjamin implemented became apparent. New, even stricter dress codes were enforced. The menu was overhauled, removing some of the more approachable dishes in favor of ultra-luxurious ingredients. Andre found himself pushed even further into the background. His suggestions were dismissed without consideration, and he noticed Benjamin's barely concealed disdain whenever they interacted. One afternoon, as Andre was preparing a sauce, he overheard Benjamin speaking to Chef Rousseau. "We need to elevate our image," Benjamin was saying. "Perhaps it's time to reconsider some of our less refined staff members." Andre's hand trembled slightly as he stirred the sauce. He knew exactly what Benjamin meant and who he was referring to. The weight of being undervalued, which had been heavy before, now felt crushing. As Benjamin's influence grew, tension in the kitchen rose. The once collaborative atmosphere was replaced by fierce competition and fear. Staff members began to eye each other warily, knowing that their jobs might be on the line if they didn't meet Benjamin's exacting standards. A moment later, Andre's fingers moved deftly as he chopped vegetables, his mind wandering to thoughts of his grandmother's kitchen. The familiar memory brought a small smile to his face, a brief respite from the tension that had become a constant in the Grand Savoy. Suddenly, voices drifted from the hallway outside the kitchen. Andre recognized Benjamin's crisp tone immediately. He paused his work, straining to hear the conversation. "What about promoting Henderson?" a voice asked. It sounded like Chef Rousseau. "He's got real talent in the kitchen." Benjamin's response was swift and dismissive. "Andre Henderson? I don't think so. He doesn't quite fit the refined image we're cultivating here at the Grand Savoy." Andre's heart sank. The knife in his hand felt heavy as the weight of Benjamin's words settled on his shoulders. "But his skills," Chef Rousseau began. "Skills aren't everything," Benjamin cut him off. "Our clientele expects a certain sophistication. You understand, don't you?" The implication was clear. Andre's race was the issue, not his abilities. The blatant racism hit him like a physical blow, leaving him breathless. For a moment, Andre stood frozen, the sounds of the busy kitchen fading away. He felt a lump form in his throat, tears threatening to spill from his eyes. But he blinked them back, taking a deep breath. With trembling hands, Andre resumed his work. Each chop of the knife was deliberate, channeling his hurt and anger into his craft. He thought of his grandmother, of the strength she'd shown in the face of prejudice. Her voice echoed in his mind, urging him to keep going, to prove them wrong. As the day wore on, Andre threw himself into his tasks with renewed determination. He seasoned dishes with extra care, plated with precision, and even stayed late to perfect a new sauce recipe. "You don't have to prove anything to them," a small voice in his head whispered. But Andre knew he did, not for Benjamin or the Grand Savoy, but for himself, for his grandmother, for every person who'd ever been told they didn't belong. With each dish he prepared, Andre poured his heart and soul into the food. He hoped that one day, his skills would speak louder than any preconceived notions. That one day, he'd be recognized for his talent, regardless of the color of his skin. The next morning, Benjamin called for an official staff meeting. The entire Grand Savoy team gathered in the main dining room, a sea of crisp white uniforms and nervous faces. Andre stood at the back, his shoulders tense as he waited for Benjamin to speak. Benjamin cleared his throat and stepped forward, his polished shoes gleaming on the marble floor. "Good morning, everyone. As you know, I've taken over ownership of the Grand Savoy, and I'd like to share my vision for our future." He paced slowly, his eyes scanning the room. "The Grand Savoy has always been synonymous with excellence, but we're going to take it even further. Our goal is to be the epitome of sophistication and exclusivity in New York City." Andre felt a knot form in his stomach. He glanced around, noting the mix of excitement and unease on his colleagues' faces. "We'll be refining our menu, focusing on only the most exquisite ingredients and innovative techniques," Benjamin continued. "Our clientele expects nothing less than perfection, and that's exactly what we'll deliver." As Benjamin spoke about elevating the dining experience, Andre couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. The words sophistication and exclusivity seemed to hang in the air, weighted with unspoken implications. "Each member of our team must embody the elegance and refinement that the Grand Savoy represents," Benjamin emphasized, his gaze sweeping across the room. "From the kitchen to the dining floor, every interaction, every dish, every detail must reflect our commitment to excellence." Andre shifted uncomfortably, acutely aware of the gap between Benjamin's words and his own position in the kitchen. He thought of the conversation he'd overheard, of Benjamin's dismissal of his potential for promotion. As the meeting continued, Andre's mind raced. He'd always seen the Grand Savoy as a stepping stone, a place to hone his skills and build his reputation. But now, listening to Benjamin's vision, he began to realize that his future here might be more uncertain than he'd thought. The meeting concluded, and as the staff dispersed, Andre lingered behind. He watched Benjamin shake hands with some of the senior staff members, noting the easy camaraderie between them. It was a world Andre felt increasingly distant from, despite his years of dedication and hard work. With a heavy heart, Andre made his way back to the kitchen. As he tied his apron, he couldn't shake the feeling that his time at the Grand Savoy might be coming to an end. But even as doubt crept in, a spark of determination flickered in his chest. He wasn't ready to give up just yet. Andre stood in the kitchen, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nervousness. He'd spent weeks perfecting a new dish, one that blended his grandmother's traditional recipes with modern culinary techniques. Today was the day he'd present it to the head chef, hoping to finally showcase his true talents. As he put the finishing touches on the plate, arranging each element with care, Andre heard the kitchen doors swing open. He looked up to see not just the head chef, but Benjamin Reed himself striding in. "What's this?" Benjamin asked, his eyes narrowing as he approached Andre's workstation. Andre swallowed hard but stood tall. "Sir, I've created a new dish that I believe would be perfect for the Grand Savoy's menu. It's a modern take on a classic soul food recipe, using locally sourced ingredients and advanced cooking techniques." Benjamin's lips tightened into a thin line. He glanced at the plate, then back at Andre. Without even reaching for a fork, he shook his head. "I'm afraid this won't do at all, Henderson. It lacks the sophistication our clientele expects." Andre felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. "But sir, if you'd just taste it—" "That won't be necessary," Benjamin cut him off. "The Grand Savoy isn't the place for experimental comfort food. We deal in refined cuisine, not home cooking." The head chef remained silent, his eyes darting between Andre and Benjamin. Andre could feel the stares of his fellow kitchen staff, a mix of pity and discomfort on their faces. As Benjamin turned to leave, he added, "Stick to your assigned tasks, Henderson. Leave the menu planning to those better suited for it." The kitchen doors swung shut behind Benjamin, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Andre stood there, his carefully crafted dish untouched, feeling a wave of disappointment and anger wash over him. For a moment, he considered giving up. Maybe Benjamin was right. Maybe he didn't belong here after all. But as he looked down at the dish he'd poured his heart into, Andre felt a spark of defiance ignite within him. He wouldn't give up. Not now, not ever. Andre knew his worth, knew the value of his culinary heritage and the skills he'd honed over years of hard work. If Benjamin couldn't see that, then Andre would just have to find a way to make him see. With renewed determination, Andre began to clean up his station. He might have lost this battle, but he was far from defeated. Somehow, someway, he would prove his worth and show everyone at the Grand Savoy exactly what he was capable of. Andre trudged up the creaky stairs to his small apartment, his shoulders heavy with the weight of the day's disappointment. As he unlocked the door and stepped inside, the familiar scent of spices and warm memories enveloped him. His grandmother's old recipe box sat on the kitchen counter, a constant reminder of where he came from and why he cooked. He sank into his worn armchair, closing his eyes and letting his mind drift back to the countless hours he'd spent in his grandmother's kitchen. Her voice, warm and wise, echoed in his thoughts. "Food ain't just about filling bellies, child," she'd say, stirring a pot of her famous gumbo. "It's about filling hearts. It's about bringing folks together, no matter where they come from." Andre opened his eyes, a small smile tugging at his lips. His grandmother had faced her own share of hardships, but she never let them dim her spirit or her love for cooking. She'd taught him that resilience wasn't just about enduring tough times, but about finding ways to thrive despite them. Suddenly energized, Andre sprang to his feet and headed to the kitchen. He pulled out his grandmother's recipe box, flipping through the handwritten cards with reverence. Each recipe told a story, carried a piece of his heritage. But as he studied them, new ideas began to form in his mind. What if he took these traditional dishes and gave them a modern twist? What if he could bridge the gap between his cultural roots and the high-end cuisine the Grand Savoy demanded? With renewed purpose, André began to experiment. He pulled out pots and pans, herbs and spices, letting his creativity flow. He infused his grandmother's collard greens with exotic Asian flavors, transformed her cornbread into delicate, savory macarons, and reimagined her fried chicken as an elegant sous vide dish with a crispy, spiced coating. As he worked, André felt a warmth spreading through his chest. This was more than just cooking. It was a celebration of who he was and where he came from. It was a testament to the resilience his grandmother had instilled in him, a way to honor her teachings while carving out his own path in the culinary world. As the days passed, André poured his heart and soul into refining his new recipes. Each dish was a testament to his heritage, reimagined with modern flair. He arrived at work early, staying late into the night to perfect his creations. The kitchen became his sanctuary, a place where he could escape the growing tension in the restaurant. Benjamin, however, seemed determined to make André's life difficult. His dismissive attitude grew more pronounced with each passing day. During a staff meeting, Benjamin openly questioned André's contributions to the kitchen. "We're aiming for sophistication here," Benjamin said, his voice dripping with disdain. "I'm not sure everyone understands that concept." His eyes lingered on André, leaving no doubt about who he meant. André felt his cheeks burn with anger and shame, but he held his tongue. He knew speaking up would only make things worse. The other staff members, once friendly and supportive, began to distance themselves from André. Conversations would stop abruptly when he entered the room. Invitations to after-work drinks dried up. Even in the bustling kitchen, André felt increasingly isolated. One afternoon, as André was preparing his latest creation, a delicate fusion of Southern comfort food and French haute cuisine, he overheard two of his colleagues whispering nearby. "I feel bad for André," one of them murmured, "but I can't risk my job. Benjamin's got it out for him." "Yeah," the other replied. "It's best to keep our heads down. Who knows who'll be next?" André's hands trembled slightly as he continued his work, pretending he hadn't heard. The words stung, but they also strengthened his resolve. He wouldn't give up. He couldn't. His grandmother's voice echoed in his mind, reminding him of the power of perseverance. As he put the finishing touches on his dish, André caught Benjamin watching him from across the kitchen. The owner's eyes were cold, calculating. André met his gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated. Benjamin might question his place at the Grand Savoy, but André knew in his heart that he belonged in this kitchen. He would prove it, one dish at a time. André's heart sank as he watched Benjamin strut into the kitchen, his eyes scanning the room with disdain. The owner's gaze landed on André, and a cruel smile twisted his lips. "Henderson," Benjamin barked. "My office, now!" The kitchen fell silent as André wiped his hands on his apron and followed Benjamin. He could feel the pitying stares of his colleagues burning into his back. In the office, Benjamin didn't even offer André a seat. He stood behind his desk, looking down his nose at the chef. "I've come to a decision," Benjamin said, his voice cold and flat. "You're fired, Henderson. Effective immediately." André felt like he'd been punched in the gut. "But why?" he managed to choke out. Benjamin's lip curled. "Let's be honest. You don't belong in a place like the Grand Savoy. Your style doesn't fit our image." The words stung like a slap. André knew exactly what Benjamin meant by style. It wasn't about his cooking at all. "You can't do this," André protested, his voice shaking. "I've worked hard. I've earned my place here." "I can and I have," Benjamin sneered. "Clear out your things. I want you gone in an hour." André stumbled out of the office, his mind reeling. He made his way back to the kitchen on autopilot, barely noticing the worried glances from his co-workers. As he packed up his personal items and his prized set of knives, reality began to sink in. He was jobless. All his hard work, all his dreams, gone in an instant. Tears pricked at his eyes as he walked out of the Grand Savoy for the last time. The weight of injustice and humiliation pressed down on him, threatening to crush his spirit. But as he stood on the sidewalk, his grandmother's words echoed in his mind. You're made of tougher stuff, baby. When life knocks you down, you get right back up. Andre took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. Benjamin might have taken his job, but he couldn't take away Andre's talent or his passion. He would find a way to prove his worth, to show the world what he could do. With a mixture of determination and heartache, Andre began the long walk home, his mind already racing with ideas for the future. Andre stepped out of the Grand Savoy for the last time, his small box of belongings clutched tightly to his chest. The weight of his chef's knives seemed heavier than usual, as if they carried the burden of his shattered dreams. As he stood on the bustling New York sidewalk, a whirlwind of emotions swept through him. Sadness tugged at his heart, threatening to overwhelm him. The Grand Savoy had been more than just a job. It had been his home away from home, a place where he'd poured his heart and soul into every dish he created. Now that chapter of his life was closed, leaving him feeling lost and adrift. But as the cool autumn breeze brushed against his face, Andre felt something else stirring within him, a fierce determination that refused to be extinguished. Benjamin's cruel words echoed in his mind, fueling a fire in his belly. He may have lost his job, but he hadn't lost his talent or his passion for cooking. "I'll show them," Andre whispered to himself, his voice barely audible above the city noise. "I'll prove my worth, no matter what it takes." As he began the long walk home, Andre's mind raced with possibilities. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of freedom. No more rigid rules, no more stifling expectations. He could create whatever dishes he wanted, blending his grandmother's soul food recipes with the techniques he'd learned at culinary school. The thought brought a small smile to his face. His grandmother had always told him that food was love, that it had the power to bring people together. Maybe this was his chance to share that love with the world, on his own terms. Yet, uncertainty lingered at the edges of his thoughts. Where would he go from here? How would he pay his bills? The future stretched out before him, a blank canvas both exciting and terrifying. As Andre walked, his steps grew more purposeful. He may not have all the answers yet, but he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to let this setback define him. He was going to rise above it, stronger and more determined than ever. Andre sat in his small apartment surrounded by the comforting aroma of simmering spices. His grandmother's old cookbook lay open on the kitchen table, its pages worn and stained with love. As he stirred the pot of gumbo, memories of his childhood flooded back. He could almost hear his grandmother's gentle voice telling him, "Food is more than just sustenance, baby. It's a way to heal hearts and bring joy to others." Andre closed his eyes, savoring the memory of her warm smile and the way her hands moved with grace as she cooked. His grandmother had always known how to make people feel better with her cooking. Whether it was a hearty stew for a sick neighbor or a special birthday cake for a lonely child, her food had the power to lift spirits and bring people together. As the flavors of the gumbo melded together, Andre felt a spark of inspiration. He realized that he didn't need a fancy restaurant to share his passion for food. He could follow in his grandmother's footsteps and use his culinary skills to make a difference in people's lives. With renewed energy, Andre grabbed a notepad and began jotting down ideas. He would start his own catering business, one that would allow him to fully express his culinary vision without restrictions. He could blend his grandmother's soul food recipes with the techniques he'd learned over the years, creating unique dishes that told a story and touched hearts. Excitement bubbled up inside him as he imagined the possibilities. He could cater for community events, family gatherings, and even small weddings. He'd be able to connect with people through his food, just like his grandmother had done. Andre's mind raced with potential menu items. He thought about the fusion dishes he'd always wanted to create, but never had the chance to at the Grand Savoy. Now he could experiment freely, honoring his heritage, while also pushing culinary boundaries. As he continued to plan, Andre felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time since leaving the Grand Savoy, he felt truly hopeful about his future. This catering business would be more than just a job. It would be a way to share his love of food and make a positive impact on his community. Andre's small apartment kitchen bustled with activity as he prepared for his first catering job. The counters were lined with colorful ingredients, and the air was filled with the tantalizing aromas of his unique fusion dishes. His hands moved with confidence as he chopped, stirred, and seasoned, pouring his heart into every dish. His first event was a small neighborhood gathering, a potluck where he'd been invited to contribute a few dishes. Andre had decided to showcase his signature fusion style, blending his grandmother's soul food recipes with modern culinary techniques. As he arrived at the community center carrying trays of food, Andre felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. He carefully set up his dishes on the long table, arranging them with the same care he'd use in a high-end restaurant. The star of his menu was a reimagined gumbo, infused with Asian spices and served over fragrant jasmine rice. Next to it sat a platter of crispy fried chicken, but with a twist. It was glazed with a tangy sweet tamarind sauce. For dessert, he'd prepared a peach cobbler cheesecake, marrying two beloved southern desserts into one heavenly creation. As people began to sample his food, Andre watched their reactions anxiously. To his relief and joy, he saw eyes widening with pleasure and heard exclamations of delight. One elderly woman approached him, her eyes twinkling. "Young man," she said, patting his arm, "this gumbo reminds me of my mama's cooking, but with something special. It's like a warm hug for my taste buds." Andre beamed with pride, feeling a connection to his grandmother's legacy. As the evening progressed, more and more people sought him out to compliment his cooking and ask about his catering services. By the end of the night, Andre had handed out all of his hastily printed business cards and even booked 2 small events for the following month. As he packed up his empty dishes, his heart swelled with hope and gratitude. Word of Andre's exceptional cooking spread quickly through the neighborhood. People raved about the young chef who could blend comfort food with exotic flavors in a way that felt both familiar and exciting. Soon, his phone was ringing with requests for birthday parties, family reunions, and even a small wedding. As Andre's catering business grew, word of his unique culinary creations spread like wildfire through the neighborhood and beyond. His phone buzzed constantly with new inquiries and bookings. Each event he catered became an opportunity to showcase his talent and passion for food. One sunny afternoon, Andre was preparing for a local charity fundraiser when his phone rang. It was Sophia Chen, a well-known food blogger in the city. She had heard about Andre's fusion cuisine and wanted to feature him on her popular blog. Andre's heart raced with excitement as he agreed to an interview and tasting session. He spent the next few days perfecting a special menu that would showcase his signature style. When Sophia arrived at Andre's modest apartment-turned-kitchen, her eyes widened at the array of colorful dishes spread before her. Andre watched nervously as she tasted each creation, scribbling notes and snapping photos with her phone. "Andre, this is absolutely incredible," Sophia exclaimed, her eyes shining. "The way you've blended your grandmother's recipes with these modern twists is pure genius. Your tamarind-glazed fried chicken is a revelation." Andre beamed with pride, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. It was as if his grandmother was there with him, nodding in approval. Sophia's glowing review went live the next day, and Andre's phone nearly exploded with notifications. Suddenly, his small catering business was thrust into the spotlight. Local food critics began reaching out, eager to sample his cuisine. One crisp fall evening, Andre catered a small gallery opening. Unknown to him, Marcus Lawson, the city's most respected food critic, was among the guests. As Andre circulated with trays of his miniature gumbo pots and fusion appetizers, he overheard snippets of conversation. "Have you tried this?" Marcus was saying to a colleague, his eyes wide with surprise. "The depth of flavor is extraordinary. It's comfort food elevated to an art form." Andre's heart swelled with joy. He thought back to those difficult days at the Grand Savoy, where his creativity had been stifled and his worth questioned. Now, here he was, receiving praise from one of the most discerning palates in the city. As the event wound down, Marcus approached Andre. "Young man," he said, extending his hand, "I must say, your food is a breath of fresh air in this city's culinary scene. The way you honor traditional flavors while pushing boundaries is truly remarkable." One warm morning, Andre's hands trembled as he held the crisp white envelope. The golden embossed logo of the national cooking competition gleamed in the sunlight streaming through his kitchen window. He took a deep breath and carefully opened it, his heart pounding. As he read the invitation, a mix of emotions washed over him. Excitement bubbled up in his chest, but it was quickly followed by a wave of nervousness. This was the big leagues, a chance to showcase his skills on a national stage. Andre sank into a chair, his mind racing. He thought back to his grandmother's words. "Food is love, Andre. When you cook with your heart, people can taste it." He closed his eyes, imagining himself in the competition kitchen, surrounded by the country's top chefs. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. Could he really compete at that level? But then he remembered all he had overcome. The discrimination at the Grand Savoy, the countless nights perfecting his craft, the leap of faith in starting his own business. Each challenge had only made him stronger, more determined. Andre stood up, a new resolve settling over him. This was his chance to prove to himself, and the world, what he was capable of. He picked up his phone and dialed the number on the invitation. "Hello, this is Andre Henderson," he said, his voice steady and clear. "I'm calling to accept my invitation to the national cooking competition." As he hung up, a smile spread across Andre's face. He walked to his spice rack, running his fingers over the jars of seasonings from around the world. His mind was already buzzing with ideas for dishes that would showcase his unique culinary vision. This competition would be more than just about winning. It was a chance to honor his grandmother's legacy, to share the love and passion she had instilled in him through food. Andre rolled up his sleeves, ready to start practicing. The journey ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face it head-on. As the days ticked by, Andre threw himself into preparation for the national cooking competition. His small apartment kitchen became a whirlwind of activity, filled with the aromas of spices and simmering sauces. Every spare moment was dedicated to perfecting his dishes. Andre's hands moved with practiced ease as he chopped, stirred, and seasoned. He closed his eyes, remembering the way his grandmother's hands had looked as she taught him to cook. Her recipes were the foundation of his culinary journey, and now he was building upon them, infusing them with his own innovative ideas. "This one's for you, Grandma," he whispered, adding a pinch of her secret spice blend to a bubbling pot. The pressure of the upcoming competition weighed heavily on Andre's shoulders. He knew he'd be up against some of the best chefs in the country. Doubt crept in during the quiet moments, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. One evening, as he was perfecting a dish that combined his grandmother's fried chicken recipe with a modern twist of exotic spices, his phone buzzed. It was a message from a local food critic who had tasted his catering. "Your food is magic, Andre. You're going to blow them away at the competition." The words brought a smile to Andre's face and renewed his determination. He worked late into the night, tweaking flavors and presentation until everything was just right. As the competition date drew nearer, Andre's kitchen became a staging ground. Pots and pans cluttered every surface, and his fridge was packed with ingredients. He ran through his planned dishes again and again, timing himself to ensure he could finish within the competition's strict limits. The night before he was set to leave for the competition, Andre sat at his small kitchen table, surrounded by recipe notes and ingredient lists. His eyes were tired, but there was a fire of excitement in them. He picked up a worn photo of his grandmother and held it close. "I hope I'm making you proud," he said softly. "Everything I've learned, everything I am as a chef, it all started with you." The day of the competition arrived, and Andre's heart raced as he stepped into the bustling kitchen arena. Bright lights and cameras surrounded him, and a wave of nerves washed over him as he realized this wasn't just any cooking contest, it was being televised nationally. "Welcome to the National Cooking Competition," a cheery host announced, her voice echoing through the space. "Millions of viewers across the country will be watching as our talented chefs battle it out for culinary supremacy." Andre's eyes widened. He hadn't expected such a grand stage. Taking a deep breath, he steadied himself and focused on the task ahead. Meanwhile, in a luxurious penthouse across town, Benjamin Reed lounged on his plush sofa, idly flipping through channels. He paused when he recognized the cooking competition, a smirk playing on his lips as he thought about the real chefs who would be competing. But as the camera panned across the contestants, Benjamin's jaw dropped. There, standing tall and proud in a crisp white chef's jacket, was Andre Henderson. "What?" Benjamin sputtered, sitting up straight. "How did he get there?" Benjamin's initial shock quickly turned to dismissal. He scoffed, shaking his head. "He'll be gone in the first round. Someone like him doesn't belong in a competition of this caliber." Back at the competition, Andre could feel the weight of the moment. This was his chance to show the world, and people like Benjamin, what he was truly capable of. As he tied his apron and surveyed his workstation, a familiar anger bubbled up inside him. He thought of all the times he'd been dismissed, all the doors that had been closed in his face. But alongside that anger, a fierce determination took hold. Andre's eyes narrowed as he focused on the ingredients before him. He wasn't just cooking for himself anymore. He was cooking for every person who'd ever been told they didn't belong, for every dream that had been dismissed. "I'll show them," Andre whispered to himself, his grandmother's words echoing in his mind. "Food has the power to change hearts. It's time to let my cooking speak for itself." With a deep breath, Andre readied himself for the challenge ahead. The competition was about to begin, and he was ready to prove Benjamin, and anyone else who doubted him, wrong. As the competition progressed, Andre's hands moved with practiced precision, chopping, seasoning, and sautéing with a grace that caught the judge's attention. His first dish, a reimagining of his grandmother's soul food staple, filled the air with tantalizing aromas that made mouths water across the studio. When the judges tasted Andre's creation, their eyes widened in surprise and delight. "This is extraordinary," one judge exclaimed, her face lighting up. "The depth of flavor is incredible, and the presentation is beautiful." Another judge nodded in agreement. "There's something truly special here. It's comfort food elevated to an art form." As the scores were tallied, Andre found himself advancing to the next round, much to Benjamin's disbelief. The former restaurant owner leaned forward in his seat, frowning at the television screen. "Beginner's luck," Benjamin muttered, but a seed of doubt had been planted in his mind. Round after round, Andre continued to impress. His dishes told stories of his heritage, each plate a canvas painted with flavors that honored his roots while pushing culinary boundaries. The judges praised his creativity and technical skill, often remarking on the unique perspective he brought to each challenge. "Andre Henderson is the dark horse of this competition," one food critic commented during a mid-competition interview. "His ability to blend traditional flavors with modern techniques is truly remarkable." As Andre advanced through the ranks, his confidence grew. He stood taller at his station, his movements more assured. The cameras loved him, capturing not just his culinary prowess but also the warmth and passion that shone through in every dish he prepared. Back in his penthouse, Benjamin watched with growing amazement and a touch of shame. The chef he had once dismissed was now captivating the nation with his talent. Benjamin's skepticism slowly gave way to grudging admiration as he witnessed Andre's journey unfold on screen. As Andre progressed through the competition, Benjamin found himself glued to the television, his disbelief growing with each passing round. The chef he had once dismissed was now captivating the nation with his culinary prowess. Andre's hands moved with confidence as he crafted dish after dish, each one a testament to his skill and creativity. The judges' faces lit up with every taste, their praises becoming more effusive with each round. "This is unlike anything I've ever tasted," one judge exclaimed, closing her eyes to savor Andre's latest creation. "The flavors are bold yet harmonious. It's like a symphony on the palate." Benjamin's frown deepened as he watched Andre receive yet another round of accolades. He couldn't deny the talent he was witnessing, and a gnawing feeling of regret began to take root in his chest. Meanwhile, Andre remained laser-focused on his goal. Each challenge was an opportunity to showcase not just his skills, but the rich culinary heritage that had shaped him. As he worked, he thought of his grandmother, of the countless aspiring chefs who had been overlooked, of every person who had ever been told they didn't belong. "This isn't just for me," Andre murmured to himself as he plated his next dish. "This is for all of us who've been underestimated." The competition grew fiercer as the finale approached, but Andre's determination never wavered. He poured his heart and soul into every creation, his dishes telling stories of perseverance, cultural pride, and the transformative power of food. As Andre advanced to the semi-final round, Benjamin found himself reluctantly rooting for his former employee. The arrogance that had once defined him was slowly crumbling, replaced by a newfound respect for Andre's undeniable talent. As the semi-final round began, Andre took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He could almost smell the warm, comforting aroma of his grandmother's kitchen. With a small smile, he opened his eyes and set to work, his hands moving with practiced precision. The judges watched intently as Andre prepared his dish, their curiosity piqued by the confident yet humble demeanor of the chef. As he cooked, Andre's mind drifted back to the countless hours he had spent in his grandmother's kitchen, learning not just recipes but life lessons that had shaped him into the man he was today. When the time came to present his creation, Andre stepped forward with a sense of quiet pride. "This dish," he began, his voice soft but clear, "is inspired by my grandmother's signature recipe. It's a celebration of my heritage and a tribute to the woman who taught me that food is love." The judges leaned in, their interest evident as Andre placed the beautifully plated dish before them. The aroma wafted up, a tantalizing blend of familiar comfort and innovative flair. As the first judge took a bite, her eyes widened. She paused, fork suspended in mid-air, as if trying to process the explosion of flavors in her mouth. "This is extraordinary," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. The second judge, known for his stoic demeanor, took a bite and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there was a noticeable sheen of tears. "I've never tasted anything quite like this," he said, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. "It's as if I can taste the love and history in every bite." The third judge, after tasting the dish, put down her fork and looked directly at Andre. "Young man," she said, her voice quavering slightly, "this isn't just food. This is art. This is memory. This is soul." Andre stood tall, his heart swelling with pride and gratitude. He could almost feel his grandmother's presence beside him, her warm hand on his shoulder. As the judges continued to praise his dish, Andre realized that he had done more than just cook a meal. He had shared a piece of his heart, his history, and his culture with the world. Andre's heart raced as the judges announced the results of the semifinal round. When his name was called as the winner, he felt a surge of joy and disbelief wash over him. The other contestants congratulated him, patting him on the back and shaking his hand. Andre smiled graciously, still processing the magnitude of his achievement. As he walked off the stage, Andre's mind whirled with emotions. He had made it to the finals of the national cooking competition. It was a dream come true, but also a daunting prospect. The weight of expectation settled on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. Back in his small prep area, Andre sat down and took a deep breath. He closed his eyes and tried to center himself. The excitement of his win bubbled up inside him, threatening to overflow. He had proven himself worthy of being in this competition, showing the world and Benjamin that he belonged in the culinary elite. But with the thrill of victory came a gnawing anxiety. The final round loomed ahead, a mountain yet to be climbed. Andre knew that this was his chance to truly make his mark in the culinary world. Everything he had worked for, every struggle and setback had led to this moment. He opened his eyes and looked at his reflection in a nearby steel pan. The face that looked back at him was tired, but determined. Andre saw in his own eyes the same fire that had burned in his grandmother's when she taught him to cook. "You've got this, Andre," he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible over the bustling sounds of the competition kitchen. "Make her proud." As he began to plan his strategy for the final round, Andre felt a mix of nervousness and determination. His hands trembled slightly as he jotted down ideas, but his mind was clear and focused. He knew that the dish he would create for the finals needed to be more than just delicious. It needed to tell his story, to showcase his journey. The gravity of the situation wasn't lost on Andre. This final round could change everything for him. It could open doors he had only dreamed of, validate all the hard work and perseverance he had poured into his craft. But it could also dash his hopes if he faltered. As the final round began, Andre took a deep breath and focused on the task at hand. He knew this was his moment to shine, to pour his heart and soul into a dish that would represent everything he stood for. With steady hands and a determined spirit, Andre set to work. He carefully selected ingredients that held deep meaning for him, fragrant spices that reminded him of his grandmother's kitchen, fresh produce that spoke of his cultural roots, and innovative elements that showcased his own culinary vision. As he cooked, Andre felt a sense of calm wash over him. The kitchen became his sanctuary, and each movement was filled with purpose and love. He could almost feel his grandmother's presence guiding his hands, whispering encouragement in his ear. The aroma of Andre's creation filled the air, drawing curious glances from the other contestants and judges. He worked with precision and care, infusing each component with layers of flavor and meaning. When the time came to present his dish, Andre's heart swelled with pride. On the plate before him was more than just food. It was his story, his journey, his heritage. The vibrant colors and artful presentation were a feast for the eyes, but it was the depth of flavor that truly set it apart. As the judges tasted Andre's creation, their expressions changed from curiosity to surprise, and then to pure delight. One judge closed her eyes, savoring each bite as if it were telling her a story. Another nodded approvingly, his eyebrows raised in pleasant surprise. The head judge, a stern-faced man known for his brutal honesty, took a bite and paused. A smile slowly spread across his face, a rare sight that made the other contestants whisper in awe. "Chef Henderson," the head judge said, his voice filled with respect, "this dish is extraordinary. It's a beautiful balance of tradition and innovation, of comfort and sophistication. You've managed to tell your story through food in a way that touches the soul." Andre stood tall, his eyes glistening with unshed tears as he listened to the judge's praise. Each word of appreciation felt like a validation of his journey, of every hardship he had overcome. When the final scores were tallied, there was a moment of tense silence. Andre's heart pounded in his chest as he waited for the announcement. And then, the winner of this year's national cooking competition is Chef Andre Henderson. As the confetti settled and the applause faded, Andre Henderson found himself at the center of a whirlwind of attention. His victory in the national cooking competition had catapulted him into the spotlight, and the culinary world couldn't get enough of him. Renowned food critics praised Andre's innovative approach to cooking, highlighting how he seamlessly blended traditional flavors with modern techniques. Food magazines clamored for interviews, eager to share his inspiring journey from a marginalized chef to a national champion. Andre's phone buzzed constantly with congratulatory messages and offers for collaborations. Celebrity chefs reached out, inviting him to guest star on their cooking shows. Even talk show hosts wanted a piece of Andre's heartwarming story, seeing it as a beacon of hope and perseverance. Amidst the chaos of his newfound fame, Andre remained grounded. He never forgot the struggles that had brought him to this point, and he used his platform to advocate for diversity and inclusion in the culinary world. His passionate speeches about the importance of cultural heritage in cooking resonated with aspiring chefs from all backgrounds. Meanwhile, across town, the Grand Savoy was facing a different kind of attention. Once the crown jewel of New York's fine dining scene, the restaurant was now struggling to maintain its reputation. Under Benjamin Reed's leadership, the focus on exclusivity had come at a cost. Regular patrons began to notice a decline in the quality of service. The once attentive staff now seemed disinterested and unmotivated. The menu, which Benjamin had insisted on keeping sophisticated, failed to evolve with the times, leaving customers unimpressed and hungry for something new. Word spread quickly in the tight-knit culinary community. Food bloggers who had once raved about the Grand Savoy now wrote scathing reviews, lamenting the restaurant's fall from grace. Reservations, which were once impossible to secure, became increasingly available as diners sought out more innovative and welcoming establishments. Benjamin Reed, who had been so confident in his vision for the Grand Savoy, found himself at a loss. He watched helplessly as the restaurant's reputation crumbled, unable to understand where he had gone wrong. The very exclusivity he had championed was now driving people away, leaving the once bustling dining room eerily quiet on most nights. As Andre's star continued to rise, Benjamin Reed found himself glued to his television, watching in disbelief as the chef he had once dismissed was now being hailed as a culinary genius. The contrast between Andre's success and the Grand Savoy's decline was stark, and it gnawed at Benjamin's pride. One evening, after another disappointing service at the restaurant, Benjamin sat in his office, staring at Andre's number on his phone. His hand trembled slightly as he pressed the call button, his throat tight with a mix of emotions he couldn't quite name. When Andre answered, Benjamin stumbled over his words. "Mr. Henderson, this is Benjamin Reed from the Grand Savoy. I hope you remember me." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Yes, Mr. Reed. Of course I remember you," Andre replied, his voice calm and professional. Benjamin took a deep breath. "I've been following your success, and I must say I'm impressed. Your dishes, they're truly remarkable." The words felt foreign on his tongue, but he pressed on. "I was wondering if you'd be interested in returning to the Grand Savoy as our co-head chef. We could use your talent and vision to breathe new life into the restaurant." Andre listened quietly, allowing Benjamin to finish his proposal. When he finally spoke, his voice was filled with a gentle firmness. "Mr. Reed, I appreciate your offer, but I'm afraid I must decline. My journey has led me to discover my true calling, sharing my love for cooking with those who truly appreciate it." It was an eye-opener. Benjamin felt a pang of disappointment, but also a grudging respect for Andre's decision. "I understand," he said softly. "You've certainly found your place in the culinary world." "Thank you," Andre replied. "I hope you find a way to revive the Grand Savoy. Every restaurant has the potential to be great when it embraces creativity and inclusivity." As the call ended, Benjamin sat back in his chair, Andre's words echoing in his mind. He realized that he had a lot to learn, and perhaps it was time for him to reevaluate his approach to running the Grand Savoy. A few days after his conversation with Benjamin, Andre found himself lost in thought, stirring a pot of his grandmother's famous gumbo. The rich aroma filled his small apartment, reminding him of the power food had to bring people together and change hearts. As he tasted the savory broth, Andre's mind drifted back to his time at the Grand Savoy. He remembered the sting of rejection, the feeling of being undervalued. But now, with his success, he felt a responsibility to make sure others didn't face the same struggles. Andre set down his wooden spoon and picked up his phone. His fingers hovered over Benjamin's number for a moment before he took a deep breath and pressed call. "Mr. Reed, it's Andre Henderson," he said when Benjamin answered. "I've been thinking about our conversation, and I have a proposal for you." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I'm listening," Benjamin replied, his voice cautious but curious. Andre's words came out in a rush. "What if we organized a special event at the Grand Savoy? One that celebrates underrepresented chefs and their unique culinary perspectives. It could be a chance to showcase diverse talents and bring new life to the restaurant." Benjamin was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his tone was hesitant. "I'm not sure, Mr. Henderson. It's quite different from our usual approach." "That's exactly why it could work," Andre pressed gently. "It's a chance to show that the Grand Savoy can adapt and grow. Think of the publicity, the new clientele it could attract." Andre could almost hear the gears turning in Benjamin's head. Finally, the restaurateur spoke. "You make a compelling argument, Mr. Henderson. I'll need some time to consider it, but I can see the potential." A small smile played on Andre's lips. It wasn't a yes, but it was a start. "Take all the time you need, Mr. Reed. I believe this could be something truly special for everyone involved." As they ended the call, Andre felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could be the beginning of real change. After much deliberation, Benjamin finally agreed to Andre's proposal. With the Grand Savoy facing declining patronage, He realized that embracing change might be the only way to save his struggling restaurant. Andre and Benjamin met at a small cafe to begin planning the event. The atmosphere was tense at first, but as they dove into the details, their shared passion for food began to bridge the gap between them. "We'll need to carefully select the chefs," Andre explained, his eyes shining with excitement. "We want to showcase a diverse range of culinary styles and backgrounds." Benjamin nodded, a hint of uncertainty still visible in his expression. "How do you propose we find these chefs?" Andre smiled warmly. "I have connections in the culinary world now. I can reach out to talented chefs who haven't had the spotlight they deserve." As they worked together, Benjamin found himself impressed by Andre's organizational skills and creative ideas. The event started to take shape, promising to be unlike anything the Grand Savoy had ever seen before. They decided to call the event Flavors of Unity, a celebration of diverse culinary traditions. The plan was to feature 10 up-and-coming chefs from various cultural backgrounds, each preparing a signature dish that reflected their heritage and innovation. As word of the event spread, media outlets began to take notice. Food bloggers buzzed with excitement, and local news stations requested interviews with Andre and Benjamin. The story of a prestigious restaurant embracing diversity captured the public's imagination. Benjamin, initially skeptical, found himself caught up in the growing excitement. "I never expected this level of interest," he admitted to Andre during one of their planning sessions. Andre nodded, a gentle smile on his face. "Food has the power to bring people together, to open minds and hearts. That's what this event is all about." As the day of the event drew closer, the buzz continued to grow. Reservations poured in, quickly filling up the Grand Savoy's capacity. The restaurant that had once been struggling was now the talk of the town, with people eager to be part of this groundbreaking culinary experience. As the days ticked by and the event drew closer, Benjamin found himself spending more and more time with Andre. Their planning sessions, once tense and formal, gradually became more relaxed and even enjoyable. Benjamin couldn't help but notice the passion and dedication Andre brought to every aspect of the event. One afternoon, as they were finalizing the menu, Benjamin watched Andre explain his vision for one of the dishes. The way Andre's eyes lit up as he described the flavors and techniques made Benjamin pause. He realized that he had never truly seen Andre for who he was, a talented, innovative chef with a deep love for his craft. "You really care about this, don't you?" Benjamin asked softly. Andre looked up, surprised by the genuine curiosity in Benjamin's voice. "I do," he replied. "Food is more than just sustenance. It's a way to connect, to share stories and experiences." Benjamin nodded slowly, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I'm beginning to see that now," he admitted. As they continued to work together, Benjamin found himself reconsidering many of his long-held beliefs. He had always seen the culinary world through a narrow lens, valuing only what he considered sophisticated cuisine. But as he learned about the diverse backgrounds of the chefs they were featuring, he began to appreciate the richness and complexity of different culinary traditions. One day, as they were taste-testing some of the dishes, Benjamin turned to Andre with a look of wonder. "I never realized how much I was missing by limiting myself to one type of cuisine," he confessed. "These flavors are incredible." Andre smiled warmly. "That's the beauty of food," he said. "It has the power to open our minds and bring us together." As the event drew nearer, Benjamin found himself genuinely excited about what they were creating. He and Andre had developed a mutual respect, each recognizing the other's strengths and contributions. Benjamin's organizational skills complemented Andre's creativity, and together they were bringing something truly special to life. The night of the special event at the Grand Savoy finally arrived. The restaurant buzzed with excitement as guests filed in, eager to experience the diverse culinary offerings. Benjamin stood near the entrance, nervously adjusting his tie and watching as the dining room filled up. Andre moved confidently through the kitchen, offering words of encouragement to the featured chefs. The air was thick with the aroma of spices and sizzling meats, a symphony of flavors from around the world. As the first courses were served, Benjamin held his breath. He watched anxiously as diners took their first bites. To his surprise and relief, faces lit up with delight. Exclamations of pleasure filled the air, and soon the dining room was alive with animated conversations about the food. One by one, the featured chefs presented their signature dishes. A young woman from Thailand served a fragrant green curry that had diners closing their eyes in bliss. A chef from Mexico presented a mole sauce that drew gasps of appreciation. Each dish told a story, not just of flavors, but of heritage and passion. Benjamin found himself deeply moved by the reactions of the guests. He saw joy, curiosity, and appreciation on their faces, emotions he had rarely witnessed in his pursuit of exclusivity. As he made his rounds through the dining room, he overheard snippets of conversation that made his heart swell with pride. "This is unlike anything I've ever tasted," one diner exclaimed. "I never knew food could be so emotional," another said, wiping a tear from her eye. As the evening progressed, food critics and influential guests began approaching Benjamin, showering him with compliments. They praised the Grand Savoy for its bold move towards inclusivity and diversity. "You've reinvented the Grand Savoy," a renowned food critic told him. "This is exactly what the culinary world needs right now." Benjamin felt a lump form in his throat. He looked across the room and caught Andre's eye. The chef gave him a warm smile and a nod, and Benjamin felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. As the last desserts were served and the event wound down, Benjamin realized that something fundamental had shifted within him. The success of the evening wasn't just about the praise or the potential boost to the restaurant's reputation. It was about the connections made, the stories shared, and the barriers broken down through the universal language of food. In the days following the successful event at the Grand Savoy, Andre found himself reflecting on his journey. The joy he saw on people's faces as they tasted the diverse dishes reminded him of his grandmother's kitchen, where food was always a source of comfort and connection. One morning, as Andre sipped his coffee, an idea struck him like a bolt of lightning. He could do more than just cook for people, he could teach them. His mind raced with possibilities as he imagined a place where young people from all walks of life could learn the art of cooking, just as his grandmother had taught him. Andre's heart swelled with excitement as he began to sketch out his vision for a culinary school. He wanted to create a safe haven for underprivileged youth, a place where they could discover their talents and build confidence through cooking. He reached out to Benjamin, who was still riding high on the success of the Grand Savoy event. To Andre's surprise and delight, Benjamin offered to help fund the school as a way to give back to the community. Over the next few months, Andre poured his heart and soul into bringing his dream to life. He found an old, abandoned building in a struggling neighborhood and worked tirelessly to transform it into a state-of-the-art kitchen and classroom space. Andre's dream of opening a culinary school for underprivileged youth began to take shape. He spent countless hours researching locations, poring over real estate listings, and visiting potential sites. Finally, he found the perfect spot, an old abandoned community center in a struggling neighborhood. The building needed work, but Andre saw its potential. With Benjamin's financial support and his own savings, he began the renovation process. Walls were knocked down, state-of-the-art kitchen equipment was installed, and bright, welcoming classrooms were created. As the physical space came together, Andre turned his attention to developing the curriculum. He wanted to create a program that would not only teach culinary skills, but also impart important life lessons. He remembered his grandmother's wisdom and how she had used cooking as a metaphor for life. Andre crafted lesson plans that incorporated techniques for knife skills and sauce making, alongside lessons on perseverance, teamwork, and self-expression through food. He wanted his students to leave not just as skilled cooks, but as confident, well-rounded individuals. Word of Andre's project spread quickly through the culinary community. Former colleagues from the Grand Savoy reached out, offering to guest lecture or donate equipment. Local farmers and food suppliers pledged to provide fresh ingredients for the students to work with. The community rallied around Andre's vision. Neighbors volunteered to help with the renovation, and local businesses offered to display flyers about the school. Andre was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. One afternoon, as Andre stood in the nearly completed kitchen, he felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He could almost hear his grandmother's voice, telling him how proud she was. Tears welled up in his eyes as he realized that he was creating something truly special, a place where young people could discover their passion and potential, just as he had done in his grandmother's kitchen so many years ago. The day finally arrived for Andrey's culinary school to open its doors. The sun had barely peeked over the horizon when Andrey arrived, his heart pounding with excitement and nerves. He walked through the gleaming kitchen, making sure everything was perfect for the student's arrival. As the clock struck 9, a group of young faces appeared at the door. Andrey's breath caught in his throat. These were the kids he'd been dreaming of helping. Teenagers from tough neighborhoods, foster homes, and struggling families. Some looked nervous, others curious, but all shared a spark of hope in their eyes. "Welcome, everyone," Andrey said, his voice warm and inviting. "I'm Chef Andrey, and this is your new home away from home." He led them on a tour of the school, watching their eyes widen at the sight of the professional-grade equipment. In the main classroom, Andrey had hung a large photo of his grandmother on the wall. He paused in front of it, feeling a lump form in his throat. "This is my grandmother," he explained. "She taught me everything I know about cooking and life, and now I'm here to pass those lessons on to you." As the students settled into their workstations, Andrey began the first lesson. He showed them how to hold a knife properly, demonstrating the technique with practiced ease. As he moved around the room, offering guidance and encouragement, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment wash over him. One student, a shy girl named Tanya, was struggling to dice an onion. Andrey gently placed his hand over hers, guiding the knife. "There you go," he said softly. "Nice and steady. You've got this." Tanya's face lit up with a smile as she successfully completed the task. Andrey felt his heart swell with pride. This was why he had created this school, to see that moment of realization, that spark of confidence ignite in these young people. As the day progressed, Andrey watched the students begin to open up. They laughed together over cooking mishaps, celebrated small victories, and started to form bonds with one another. By the time the first day drew to a close, the kitchen was filled with the aroma of their creations and the sound of cheerful chatter. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the city, Andrey stood at the entrance of his culinary school. He watched with a mixture of pride and emotion as the last of his students filed out, chattering excitedly about their first day. The aroma of spices and freshly baked bread lingered in the air, a testament to the day's lessons. Andrey's mind drifted back to his journey, from the kitchens of the Grand Savoy to the national spotlight, and now here, at the threshold of something truly special. He realized that this school was more than just a place to teach cooking. It was a haven where young people could find purpose, confidence, and community. As he was lost in thought, a familiar figure approached. It was Benjamin Reed, looking slightly out of place in his expensive suit. "Andrey," Benjamin called out, his voice hesitant. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Andrey turned, surprise evident on his face. "Benjamin? What brings you here?" Benjamin shuffled his feet, a far cry from his usual confident demeanor. I wanted to see your school, and to talk, if you have a moment." Andrey nodded, gesturing for Benjamin to follow him inside. They walked through the kitchen, now quiet after the busy day. "This is impressive, Andrey," Benjamin said, genuine admiration in his voice. "You've created something truly special here." Andrey smiled, running his hand along a spotless countertop. "It's more than I ever dreamed of. These kids, Benjamin. They remind me why I fell in love with cooking in the first place." Benjamin nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since our event at the Grand Savoy. Watching you with these students, it's opened my eyes to what really matters in this industry." Andrey looked at Benjamin, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "It's not just about prestige or exclusivity, is it?" "No," Benjamin agreed. "It's about passion, creativity, and bringing people together. You've shown me that, Andrey. And I want you to know, I'm sorry for how I treated you before." Andrey felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He realized that this moment, this conversation, was the final piece of his journey. He had not only created a legacy for himself, but had also inspired change in others. If you enjoyed the story of Andrey and Benjamin, I handpicked this next story that will touch your heart. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.